Hello everybody, I'm Pontius, and welcome back to Unexpected Awesome. Despite the first film showcasing the title character as an antagonist to humankind, the grand majority of Godzilla films after 1956, due to the smash success of Godzilla Raids Again, there tends to be a general trend in most Godzilla films to portray Godzilla as either a heroic or anti-heroic defender of the Earth, rather than a titanic mutant arising from the oceans to punish humankind for its scientific overambitions. As such, this makes almost any entry, including the only other Godzilla film I've ever discussed on this channel, where he's the bold-faced antagonist of the film, all the more distinct inside of the entire series. And among these more antagonistic entries, there are very few that stand out as distinctively as none other than Godzilla, Mothra, and King Ghidorah. Giant monsters all-out attack. GMK sees a general, as well as his intrepid reporter daughter, attempt to track down and discover the source of a new Godzilla's power as he wreaks havoc across the lands of Japan. Coming surprisingly to Japan's aid are a trio of monsters, each more powerful than the last, yet each felled as ignobly as the last. The first is the horned quadrupedal Baragon, who finds itself toasted in the mountains. The other two are Mothra, whose premonition coming by her ghost hobo herald provide insight and exposition into the entire birth of the current crisis, that being Japan and its prosperity and ennui, forgetting about the various grand atrocities it committed across the Pacific during the Second World War. And finally, in the only non-space alien version of the character, King Ghidorah comes in at the last moment to try to defeat and wrestle down Godzilla, only with last-ditch efforts by the general and his reporter daughter, driving a kamikaze naval vessel straight into the heart of Godzilla and blowing him up, do they begin to stop him. And Japan begins to realize the weight of its sins, and it begins to try atonement. GMK, overall, is one of the more straightforward yet ambitious films in terms of the Godzilla franchise. The real champion, however, is the special and practical effects. The suitmation is at a level of quality that honestly wouldn't even be surpassed in films that would come after this, such as Final Wars or even possibly Godzilla against Mechagodzilla. With a more brawling sumo style to the actual action in the film, this helps make for a more tactile and brutal vision of giant monster battles, and this is kept in the tone of the film itself. This is a version of Godzilla whose spite and hatefulness wouldn't be seen till only recently with Godzilla -1. Individual minor characters representing the complacency of Japan's culture, bearing the brunt of almost an ironic cruelty that is markedly more aggressive than the defining entries throughout the 1960s and 70s, and one of the most unique and hardcore soundtracks in the entirety of the filmography of Godzilla. And Godzilla is a filmography of official soundtracks that would be the envy of almost any franchise, bar a very, very sparse few. However, despite the ambition and despite the genuinely impressive effects and direction, the film itself suffers from an issue I'd like to consider to be a large part of the Godzilla series, as well as Mothra films in general. Although this movie does have my favorite version of Mothra overall. It's not to say that Godzilla films always lack tact or artistry. It's that a lot of times, because the strength of the focus of the franchise has always been on its spectacle, the overall substance of the story boils down largely to a handful of dialogue interactions and a speech by the Mothra representative. As such, the attempts at social commentary do fall flat, especially the intrepid reporter character, who, in an attempt to be relatable, comes across as more oafish than anything else, making for a lackluster human cast that does take up a lot of screen time. However, overall, if you're a fan of the Godzilla franchise and you love giant monster-on-monster action, then Godzilla, Mothra, and King Ghidorah is absolutely worth your time. Stay golden.